Ladies and gentlemen, before the crowd opens its eyes, before the noise begins, before the excuses get dressed and put on their shoes, there is a quiet hour waiting for you. It is a sacred hour. It is a powerful hour. It is the hour when the world is still negotiating with sleep and the winners are already negotiating with destiny. That is the hour I want to speak about tonight. That is the hour hidden inside the title of this message. Get up before they do. Because there is something life-changing about being first to rise, first to think, first to prepare, first to act. There is something deeply powerful about meeting the morning while others are still bargaining with the pillow. There is something about standing in the silence of the early hours that teaches you who you are when nobody is clapping, nobody is praising, nobody is watching, and nobody is available to rescue you from your own laziness. And that matters. It matters more than many people realize. We live in a time where everybody wants results, but not everybody wants responsibility. Everybody wants the crown, but not everybody wants the climb. Everybody wants the reward, but not everybody wants the routine. Everybody wants the breakthrough, but not everybody wants the discipline that births it. Everybody wants to shine, but not everybody is willing to sit in the dark long enough to become light. So I came to tell you this. If you want a different life, you must live with a different rhythm. If you want uncommon results, you must practice uncommon habits. If you want a future that looks stronger than your present, then you have to begin your day before the ordinary begins theirs. Not because waking early makes you better than anyone else, but because waking early gives you something priceless. Time, focus, space, and self-command. And self-command is where real growth begins, because the first battle of the day is not with the world. The first battle of the day is with yourself. It is with the voice that says, stay in bed. It is with the comfort that whispers, start tomorrow. It is with the habit that says, you can do it later. It is with the old version of you that wants progress without pressure, success without sacrifice, achievement without accountability. Every day, that version tries to negotiate with your future. Every day, that version tries to steal your morning. And every day, your destiny asks a simple question. Who is in charge here? You see, early morning is not just a time on the clock. It is a declaration of identity. When you get up before they do, you are not just rising from a mattress. You are rising from passivity. You are rising from delay. It means you are rising from the habit of waiting for motivation to arrive like an invited guest. You are saying, my life will not be run by comfort. My future will not be held hostage by laziness. My self-respect is stronger than my appetite for ease. It means that is powerful because self-respect is built in private. It is not built in the comment section. It is not built by strangers who only know your highlights. It is not built by applause that comes and goes like weather. Self-respect is built when you keep your word to yourself. When you said you would get up and you got up. When you said you would work and you worked. When you said you would improve and you improved. When you said you would stop begging for approval and you stopped. That is how confidence is born. Not from pretending. Not from performance. Not from trying to impress everybody in the room. Confidence is born when your actions repeatedly tell your mind, I can trust this person. Confidence grows when your habits begin to match your hopes. Confidence grows when your discipline starts doing what your feelings keep resisting. And that is why the morning matters so much. The morning is where you practice emotional independence. What is emotional independence? It is the ability to move forward without needing permission from people who are not responsible for your dreams. It is the ability to create your own peace instead of begging for it from someone else. It is the ability to say, I do not need everybody to understand me in order for me to continue. It is the ability to wake up with purpose even when nobody has sent a motivational text. It is the ability to keep building when your name is not being mentioned in the room. Too many people are living as prisoners of reaction. Somebody approves them and they feel alive. And somebody ignores them and they feel small. Somebody praises them and they soar. Somebody criticizes them and they collapse. Somebody likes their post and they are happy. Somebody does not respond and they are miserable. That kind of life is a house built on sand. One wave of opinion and it shakes. One storm of criticism and it breaks. One season of silence and it panics. But a person with emotional independence does not live that way. They are grounded. They are centered. They know who they are before the room decides to tell them. They know their value before the market prices them. They know their direction before the crowd agrees with it. And if you want that kind of strength, then start with your mornings, because early hours give you something that loud hours steal: control. When the world is still asleep, it means your mind is calmer, your thoughts are less crowded, your decisions are clearer, your intentions are stronger. You are not yet pulled in 20 directions by emails, noise, demands, emergencies, and distractions. The quiet of the morning gives you a window into yourself. It gives you the chance to ask, what kind of person am I becoming? What do I truly want? What must I build today that my future will thank me for? That is not a small thing. That is life-shaping. And let me tell you something else. Getting up early is not just about productivity. It is about respect. It is respect for your time. It is respect for your potential. It is respect for your health. It is respect for your calling. It is respect for the people who depend on you. It is respect for the future version of yourself who will either celebrate your discipline or suffer from your excuses. Every time you get up before they do, you are saying to yourself, I matter enough to prepare. I matter enough to improve. I matter enough to take my life seriously. That is not arrogance. That is dignity. There is a difference between pride and self-respect. Pride says, look at me. Self-respect says, I will live in a way that deserves my own admiration. Pride performs. Self-respect practices. Pride wants credit. Self-respect wants growth. Pride asks, who is watching? Self-respect asks, who am I becoming when no one is watching? That question will change your life. Because the truth is, most people are not defeated by a lack of talent. They are defeated by a lack of consistent private discipline. They are defeated by the little compromises that happen before breakfast. They are defeated by staying too long in comfort, too long in distraction, too long in the warm blanket of excuse-making. They are defeated by the habit of living reactively instead of intentionally. But there is another way to live. There is a stronger way. There is a freer way. It begins when you understand that your life is not built by one dramatic moment. It is built by repeated decisions. One early morning, one focused hour, one honest effort, one small victory, one rejected excuse, one kept promise, then another, then another, then another. That is how a life is shaped. Not in fireworks, but in fire. Not in applause, but in practice. Not in luck, but in labor. And you do not need to be perfect to begin. You just need to begin. You do not need to wake up one morning transformed into a machine. You just need to wake up one morning and decide that your comfort will no longer rule your calendar. You just need to wake up one morning and say, I am done negotiating with my future. You just need to wake up one morning and give your destiny the respect it deserves. People talk about discipline like it is a harsh enemy. Discipline is not your enemy. Discipline is your defender. Discipline protects your dreams from your moods. Discipline shields your future from your impulses. Discipline keeps your goals alive when excitement has gone home. Discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you will become. And mornings are where discipline learns to walk. Because in the morning there are no excuses dressed up as emergencies. There is only you and your word. You and your standard. You and your next choice. You and the quiet truth about whether you really mean what you say. That is why the early hours are so valuable. They reveal character. They uncover patterns. They expose weakness. They also create strength. Now, I want to speak directly to the person who has been waiting for validation. Maybe you have been waiting for somebody to notice your effort. Maybe you have been waiting for someone to tell you that you are enough. Maybe you have been waiting for praise before you believe in your own direction. Maybe you have been waiting for family approval, social approval, professional approval, or public approval. Maybe you have been sitting at the edge of your own life, asking the world for permission to start living it. Listen carefully. The approval you keep waiting for may never come. And if it does come, it may come too late to build the life you were meant to build. So stop waiting. Stop waiting for people who are too distracted to understand your growth. Stop waiting for critics to become cheerleaders. Stop waiting for people committed to the old version of you to celebrate the new version of you. Change. Stop waiting for a round of applause before you take a step. Stop waiting for the stamp of approval from people who have never had to carry your burden, fight your battle, or answer for your calling. You do not need permission to grow. You do not need applause to work. You do not need universal agreement to be committed. You do not need every eye on you to become excellent. What you need is a standard. And a standard is one of the most beautiful things a human being can own. A standard says, this is who I am when I am alone. A standard says, this is how I live, even when there is no reward yet. A standard says, I will not lower my life to fit my laziness. A standard says, I am building something that requires more of me than comfort is willing to give. That is the language of growth. That is the language of power. That is the language of people who eventually become unshakable. You know, success is often pictured as a finish line, but success is more like a staircase. And the staircase is not glamorous. It is repetitive. It is quiet. It is sometimes tiring. It is often unnoticed. Yet every step matters. Every step lifts you higher. Every step changes your view. Every step makes the next one possible. Getting up before they do is one of those steps. And maybe that sounds simple. Good, keep it simple. Great things are often simple before they are great. Drink water, sleep with intention, rise early, move your body, read something worthwhile, think before you scroll, work before you wander, pray before you panic, plan before you perform. These are simple acts, but simple acts repeated with consistency become a life of power. Do not underestimate the small things. The small things are where most lives are won or lost. A skipped alarm here, a wasted morning there, a little more time surrendered to delay, a little more life traded for distraction, and suddenly years have passed. Suddenly the dream is still a dream. Suddenly the gift is still buried. Suddenly the future is still waiting. And the saddest part is that the person who delayed it all is not an enemy from the outside. It was the voice inside saying later. Later is one of the most dangerous words in the language of change. Later becomes never more often than people admit. Later says, I will take my health seriously later. Later says, I will build discipline later. Later says, I will focus on my calling later. Later says, I will heal later. Later says, I will become the person I promised myself I would be later. And one day, later leaves you with a life that looks nothing like your intentions. So today, make a different decision. Decide that you are no longer available for self-betrayal. That is what it is, you know. Every time you know what you should do and you repeatedly choose against it, it is a small betrayal. Every time you promise yourself a better life and then protect your comfort instead, it is a betrayal. Every time you talk to yourself like a defeated person when you were meant to live like a disciplined one, it is a betrayal. But every time you rise when you said you would rise, every time you work when you said you would work, every time you practice when you said you would practice, every time you resist the old habit and choose the better one, you are rebuilding trust with yourself. And self-trust is one of the purest forms of confidence. Because when you trust yourself, you stop begging the world to stabilize you. When you trust yourself, you stop panicking when people misunderstand you. When you trust yourself, you stop shrinking every time a louder personality enters the room. When you trust yourself, you can stand still in a storm because your roots are deep. That is why the early morning is not just a daily habit. It is a training ground for character. The morning asks, will you keep your word? The morning asks, change. Will you lead yourself? The morning asks, will you live with purpose or drift with convenience? The morning asks, will you honor your future enough to begin now? And every honest answer makes you stronger. There is a reason so many great achievements are surrounded by stories of early rising, long preparation, hidden labor, and lonely discipline. Not because the hour itself is magic, but because the hour reveals commitment. The hour separates wishful thinking from serious intention. The hour filters out the noise. The hour gives birth to focus. And focus, my friends, is priceless. A focused person is dangerous in the best possible way. A focused person does not waste life on comparison. A focused person does not lose half the day to gossip, blame, and distraction. A focused person knows where the next brick belongs. A focused person understands that every hour is a tool, not a toy. A focused person does not need every door to open. They know how to build one. That is why purpose matters so much in this message. Purpose gives meaning to the early alarm. Purpose gives fire to the first step. Purpose gives strength to the day when nobody else sees the struggle. Purpose says there is a reason I am doing this. Purpose transforms routine into worship, work into growth, and sacrifice into investment. When purpose is absent, discipline feels heavy. When purpose is present, discipline feels holy. You can feel that in your bones. You can feel the difference between dragging yourself through a day and directing yourself through a mission. One is survival. The other is significance. So ask yourself, what are you waking up for? Are you waking up merely to repeat your habits? Are you waking up to consume, compare, and complain? Are you waking up to scroll through the achievements of other people while your own potential sits untouched? Or are you waking up to build, to learn, to serve, to strengthen, to become? That question matters because it determines the quality of your life. A person with no purpose is easily seduced by comfort. A person with purpose understands that pain has a place, sacrifice has meaning, and effort is never wasted. Purpose gives you the courage to leave the bed. Purpose gives you the courage to